Hey, welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. We are here with Chris, the Penn State guy, talking transfer portal for Penn State, presented and brought to you by FanDuel. Going to talk through the Penn State transfer portal additions, a couple other things in this as well. And I'll do this one a little bit different. So each one we've kind of come on and talked about the additions, the departures, and the quarterback a little bit. Well, we've had Chris on before, and Chris always does a great job when he's here with us. And so this time we're going to let Chris kind of go position by position with how it went in the portal, because there are just so many players that you can mention from this Penn State thing. If I ask about additions, we could talk for 50 minutes on just the additions. So instead, we're going to go position by position and kind of get Chris's thoughts on how the position looks, maybe give a little bit of a grade, players that left, players that come in, and go through it that way. So Chris, let's start with the quarterbacks. You get Rocco Becht, you lose Ethan Grunkmeyer. What is your thoughts on the quarterback position for Penn State post-transfer portal?
I think they're in a pretty good spot. I mean, I like the quarterback pickups. So, like, kind of how you just explained, like, I'm going to give a position a grade of how they did just in the portal pickups, and then I'll give an overall grade of the position itself. Like, obviously, the players they retained already on the team combined with the guys they brought in. So, as far as for QB, I gave it an A-. So, if it was just Rocco Becht and they didn't get Mansky, I would probably go B+. But being that they got Alex Mansky as well, who's I believe he's a four-star transfer. If not, I know he's a four-star recruit as a quarterback. A lot of high upside there to Mansky. He's 6. I'm going to talk about Rocco Becht. Well, let's just talk about Becht. So Becht, I didn't realize a lot of this, but he threw for over 3,000 yards. I think he had like 3,500 yards in 2024. Obviously, had better receivers with Jaden Higgins and Jalen Null. And he had over 3,000 yards in 2023. Now, 2025 was a down year because he lost those NFL receivers. They brought in they had brought in some other guys like Chase Sowell. But I didn't realize Rocco Becht, I think it was the offseason, but at some point in 2024, he had some injuries he was overcoming. One was in his non-throwing arm, but then he had an AC joint sprain in his throwing shoulder where he wasn't quite 100%, they said, to start the season. But I like Rocco Becht. Overall, I still would have liked to keep Ethan Grunkmeyer and just rolled with him for the next 2-3 years, probably 3 years. But I understand getting Rocco Becht. He should come in. He's obviously very familiar with the offense, should hit the ground running. He does remind me of Trace McSorley. I don't think he's going to run quite as much as Trace, but he's a gamer. They're going to push the ball downfield. He's the opposite of Drew Aller. Drew Aller was scared to death, as I beat the dead horse, was scared to death to throw it downfield. This guy's the exact opposite. They want to push the ball downfield, but sometimes he takes chances doing that. So he'll throw some costly interceptions. He did last year at times. Hopefully he could cut down on the interceptions, up his completion percentage. It was only around 60% for the career or something like that. Hopefully get a little more accurate. But he's a gamer. I do like him. Veteran quarterback, coming back with a familiar offense. Should have a better offensive line. That should help a lot. Hopefully help overall cut down on some costly mistakes, give him some more time. Alex Mansky, who I just mentioned before, he's a big 6'3", 225-pound quarterback. Very physical runner as well. People actually are comparing him already to like a Will Levis, which I totally get, because he's got a big, huge arm like Levis. He's a physical runner like Levis. Hopefully he won't be as reckless and will, take care of his body a little bit, because Levis never slid. But Mansky has his mechanics look a little wonky, because he was a pitcher. And when he throws the ball, you see his back foot come up a lot. And there's this big thing about quarterbacks today, and I'm not going to go on a tangent about it, I'll be quick. But there's a big thing in quarterbacks with changing their mechanics, where in the old school days, 80s, 90s, whatever, you had that typical long stride where you'd take a step and you'd have that long stride, and that was called being a linear thrower, where the weight would go from the back to the front, that long stride. And there's a very good quarterback coach named Brad Mandler, Mandler. coaches all kinds of top high school recruits. He coached Grunkenmeyer. He completely changed Drew Aller's mechanics and made it better. I would say give him a look on YouTube. What he teaches is a rotational method, and that's what I think what they're trying to, I'd like to see a little more out of Mansky. He's kind of like he's a little bit rotational. The rotational method it's not a big stride. It's a shorter stride where you get more power, where it's more hips rotating your torque. It's more rotational than linear, and it's a shorter stride to get the ball out quicker, and it's supposed to give you more velocity on your throws. Mansky's such a big, strong arm guy. He could rely on his arm so much. The big, strong arm quarterbacks, they sometimes get away from their mechanics. But he has a lot of upside, Mansky, and he's actually more at least watching his film a little bit, seems like he might be a little more accurate than Becht. So I'm going to go A- there, not just in the portal, but I'm going to go A- overall. I do really like Rocco Becht, like I said, with Penn State's offensive line and some more, give him Kobe Howard along with and Andrew Rapulé along with the weapons he's bringing in. I think he could do some good things. Wide receiver. This was tough.
Let me comment on the quarterback
real
fast. We'll go to wide
receiver.
Problem. I completely agree with you. I think that there was a lot of questions after Ethan Grunkenmeyer left, after his bowl game and everything else. A lot of people were kind of wondering, what is this going to look like with Rocco Becht? And I told people, look, I understand you want to stick with your guy, Ethan Grunkenmeyer, and everything else. And don't get me wrong, if I was a Penn State fan, and I do kind of root for Penn State, obviously, I run a Big Ten podcast, but if I was a diehard Penn State fan, like many other people, I would have probably wanted Ethan Grunkenmeyer to be the guy too. But I think that Penn State is set up much, much better with Rocco Becht and Alex Mansky in this situation. Unfortunately, Ethan Grunkenmeyer moves on. I get that, but Mansky is a accurate quarterback. I've looked up some of his film after you talking about him, and I think that Rocco Becht is going to be an excellent bridge from Drew Aller and James Franklin and everything else to Matt Campbell and his whole system, obviously bringing over the offensive coordinator from Iowa State and everything as well. So just wanted to say that. And if you have any comments, go for it, Chris, or if you just want to get straight into wide receivers, go ahead.
Pretty much spot on. Pretty much spot on. I agree with it. Like I said, I just thought Grunkenmeyer just came on more and more, and I followed him since high school. Like, he had the it factor, but at the same time, I totally get going with Rocco Becht, who you won't miss a beat with your offense, learning the offense. He already knows the system, veteran quarterback, and Mansky has a high upside, So I'm fine with it either way. Wide receiver, this was a hard one for me because I'm giving it a B or a B plus. Because I have no idea how good Chase Solwell and this Brett Eskelson is going to be. I do have a good idea how Kobe Howard's going to be. You've seen flashes. All we've heard all offseason or in practice, not just offseason, but before last year, how great he looked in camp. And there was a whole video that came out in an article a guy wrote about just Franklin refusing to play a lot of these younger players. And, but this Chase Solwell, for example, he's another guy that I think came in. He started the year off injured. So obviously that affected his play. He only had like 500 some yards. Brett Eskelson had in the 500 some yard mark or range. They're both 500-yard receivers. Now this Chase Solwell, I remember because I was reading up on some Iowa State insiders. They're hoping at Iowa State he was going to be the next Jaden Higgins, and it didn't exactly happen. I think he's a good receiver. I don't think he's going to be great, but I do think he's going to be a good receiver. He's 6'3". He's got to be about 215 at least. Big-bodied receiver. Looks to kind of have average speed, but a lot of upside to him. Another good vertical threat. Just we have to see what he does. Because when he was healthy at East Carolina, I think his best year was like 600 and some yards. So it wasn't like he was lighting it up even against lesser competition. I don't dislike him. It's just kind of like a wait and see mode of how good these guys will really be. Brett Eskelson, he's the white dude, 6'1", 6'2", good size. He was a track guy, and he could absolutely fly. He ran like a 10. I think he was like a 10.5 or 10.4 guy. He's a burner. And the more and more he learns to be a receiver, and this is going to be his third year, I believe, so we'd have him for one more year. I wouldn't be surprised if he if he bolts up a little bit, because this kid could really move. He just has to learn more nuances to route running. Not that he's a bad route runner, but I really like this Eskilsson because he's straight ahead, vertical threat, great speed. Just see what they do in the route running department. So my portal grade and my overall position grade, it's just kind of I'll be nice because I know Sunshine Pumpers always want me to be nice. I'll just say B+. I don't know how good Sowell and Eskilsson is going to be in the Big Ten. If they were Jaden Higgins, Jalen Knoll, and they came in and they're like 1,000-yard type receivers from Iowa coming in, I'd say, okay, this is big time production. Being that they weren't, and yes, Sowell was a little hurt, I'm just kind of wait and see mode. So
I get that. I was going to say, I think anything over what you had, the past few years is going to look like an improvement. And while I agree, I think it is improvement. I do think that Penn State had more wide receiver talent than maybe they got credit for last season. I think you saw that as Ethan Gruckmeyer continued to build and develop. You saw more of that in the wide receiver room, especially Trevor Pena and some of those guys. But I think that also gives you hope that some of the guys that stuck around probably had more talent than maybe people were giving them credit for as well. So I'm with you. It's wait and see, but my optimism for Penn State wide receivers is far greater now than it has been the past 2 or 3 seasons.
Yep. So I told you I don't want to beat a dead horse, and here you are. You got me going now. So I've said this forever. Do you remember one of the first videos I did with you guys long ago when everybody's saying about the receivers, Drew All, or receivers aren't good? I said, it's not the receivers, it's Drew. Listen, Keandre Lambert-Smith went on. He had just shy of 1,000 yards with Auburn. The kid could play. When Harrison Wallace left, okay, everybody, he's a diva. He just wants more money. He went on to be one of the better receivers in the SEC. He went on to be a 900-yard receiver in the SEC. I'm not saying they're great. They're not Jeremiah Smith. They're not even Ricardo, but they're good. So, and they ruined him. They basically ruined him. Franklin didn't know what he was doing. And that's what this one article, I think I texted the article. It's on subs. If you go to Basic Blues Substack, there's a whole article. Some people saying it's fraud or bullshit, but the guy also did an interview. If you go on state media, Brad Culp is the guy's name. He did an interview where he interviewed 2 anonymous players still with Penn State, and they talked about last season and basically just stuff you kind of already known. But just how they made the receivers like this was some of the players were saying. They made the receivers glorified blockers. All they did is build around the run game, build around the tight ends, and they just didn't know how to incorporate the receivers. It just got bad. And to your point, there is absolutely no doubt that we will have finally a consistent downfield passing game. We might not be Ohio State, like this high-flying attack, but they are committed to a downfield passing game. I listened to Taylor Mauser. There's a good interview. I think you have to pay for. It's called Roar Plus with LeVar Arrington. And this Taylor Mauser is aggressive. That's the new OC. In 4 games last year, he opened up the game, first play of the game, going deep. Like, they're aggressive. They're committed to a downfield passing game. And this is why they bring in so many tall receivers. They're not bringing just 5'10 guys, little 5'11 guys in their speedsters. They want vertical threats because that has been one of their MOs. Another receiver I forgot to mention is Keith Jones from Grambling State. Again, I have no idea how good this guy's going to be. He's 6'4". He's like in the 185, 90-pound range. He's put together good. He's not big, but he's ripped up, tall, supposedly a burner. He has a little bit of film. He looks decent. It's kind of a small sample size. Again, he was in Iowa, Grambling State. I think he only played 1 year there, I believe. But we'll see what he does. But, the core of your receivers are going to be Chase Sowell, Brett Eskilsson, Kobe Howard. Now, they do have a couple of young guys that are coming back in their second and third years. Lyric Samuel and Pete Gonzalez. Lyric Samuel is another typical tall, big, 6'4", lanky receiver. Had to put on weight last year. Another guy with high upside. He could run well. If I had to guess, he's probably a low 4.5 guy. Just long stride, could go up and get the ball. A lot of high upside. I wouldn't be surprised to see if he breaks out a little bit this year now that we have better coaches committed to playing just the best players. Pete Gonzalez, another big-bodied receiver, 6'2", 200 pounds. He's built thick, though. Like, this Gonzalez looks like a big guy, and he really earned his scholarship. He's another guy. I know he clocked in the 4.5. Unfortunately, Gonzalez has been dealing with a lot of injuries at Penn State, overcoming some injuries there. So we'll see what they do. So on to running back, I gave the portal pickups a B. So the two main running backs we got, Carson Hansen and James Peoples. Both of them, they're kind of different backs in my opinion. Solid running backs. I don't think any of them are like super explosive or these like, big time guys that are going to wow you. Carson Hansen's a big boy. He's 6'2" in the 220 some pound range, I believe. He's not a burner. He's not gonna be a guy that's taking it to distance. He's probably a high 4.5, 4.6 guy, if I were to guess. He's deep. But he has very good vision and just good vision, physical. Hopefully he could be that between the tackles, that tough in between the tackles, physical runner, maybe a Zach Zwinek type. If you remember Zach Zwinek back in the day, he was a physical running back. James Peoples is a very nice running back. Peoples has good vision, good elusiveness, just good all around, solid back, decent size. Well, about James Peoples. I don't think he's a burner either. He's not as slow as Hansen. I think he has pretty good speed, but nothing's going to wow you. They're solid backs. So I'm giving those pickups a B for the portal. Now, my overall grade, it's either going to be a B plus or an A, and here's why. So B plus with Hansen, Peoples, Quinyon Martin, Cam Wallace. I think Quinyon Martin, right at the time, if my guess, might probably have the most upside. Cam Wallace is a burner. He's explosive. He's the fastest of the four I mentioned. Quinyon Martin is a 4.4 guy with good size, just really good vision, runs physical. So with those two combined with the Iowa State the transfer running backs they picked up, I'm going to go B plus. None of those guys are going to be a Zeke Elliott, Saquon Barkley. None of them are going to be that level. But as I mentioned in your other video, Kemon Spell is still looking to reclassify to 2026. If he reclassifies and he comes in 2026, then my running back room is an A. Do I think he will start week one? Probably not, because, just coaches in general, they probably feed their own guys, the veteran guys, and then they work him in. Like Saquon Barkley is a true freshman. Franklin didn't start him week one. I know Campbell's not Franklin, thank God, but Barkley didn't start week one. They played Temple. He had one carry. I think it was the following week. They played Buffalo. Then all of a sudden he pretty much became the starter or got starter carries. Rest is history. Kemon Spell, regardless if he starts or not, they're probably going to have a rotation at running back, minimal of 2 guys. I don't know if they'll rotate 3 guys on regularly. You might have 3 guys that get carries, but I'm sure there's going to be at least just 2 bell cows. I do think Kemon Spell has more ability than any of these guys. He could take it the distance. I'm not going to get in a whole breakdown about how good he is. We've already done that. But here's the thing. So Penn State just had their junior days. Their junior day weekend was yesterday, and the difference between Campbell's junior days as opposed to how Franklin did it. Frank would have a shitload of recruits. He could have like the 20, 30 guys. I don't know the number, but a lot of recruits, like 20 some recruits there, maybe more. The way Matt Campbell's doing it is he's having, because of his junior days, he's having less recruits, but he wants to get the best guys on campus. So instead of having 20 some guys show up, maybe he has, 10 guys show up or 8 or 9 guys where he has more one-on-one time with them. Priorities. You always hear this guy's a priority, that guy's a priority in recruiting. So they just wrapped that up. Kemon Spell did not show up. He was scheduled to come. The reason we got was because of the weather. Now, I don't think he was looking to stay overnight. I don't know what his family situation was, if they're looking to stay overnight. But the snow didn't come yesterday. The snow was here today. So he got a new agent. So is that a red flag? Some people think, we're in trouble. But then I got a text from a buddy earlier on, and this is kind of secondhand, third-hand information passed down. So take it with a grain of salt. But they said the reclassification is all set to go through. You know, the NIL deal, their money's supposed to be getting set. We'll see what happens. February 4th is from what I saw, you have to sign by February 4th. So any 2026, if you're in the 26 class, any 26 recruit that is not signed yet, the last signing day they could sign is February 4th. So I think if Spell reclassified, he would probably have to sign by then. But interestingly enough, there's information out there that he's supposed to visit Georgia next weekend. Now that Georgia visit's been scheduled for a long time now. So we'll see what happens with Kevon Spell. On to I'm sorry, I keep forgetting.
You're good. He wouldn't have to sign by then. Rutgers had a defensive end last cycle that reclassified and got to school literally in August.
Okay. Well, that's good news then. Yeah. Well, I'm not talking about when they get there. I'm just talking about signing. Like there might be guys that sign, but then they can't.
He didn't sign until the summer. Yeah. He
didn't
sign until the summer.
So I did hear this summer mention about Kevon Spell too, about some people, but I didn't know. I'm not big. I don't really care a lot about dates and all those little rules of dead periods and this and that. Because that's just boring to me. But I'm glad you clarified that because what I saw online was a little misleading.
I would say if I'm tracking this correctly, I would say if you don't see anything on February, what would you say, 3rd or whatever, most likely going to be something you're going to look for in the summer. And in that situation, he probably wouldn't play, like you said, right away, kind of start, because even the season, Bo Jackson at Ohio State, who was true freshman running back, he didn't start until conference play started. So just how it goes with freshmen. So.
Yeah, this is how it works. And the thing is, like, you know, they always say it's better, it's easier to play when you're coming from the outside in. And the reason a lot of kids would not play early is because they're not physically ready. You know, you go out and recruit a lineman that's only 270 pounds, he's going to need a year in the weight room. But Spell is built so physical and thick, you know, at 5'9", around 210 already, people are saying. Like, the physicality, like I think the physicality is not going to be a problem. But anyways, so on to tight ends. I gave the portal pickups a B+. So we got Ben Bramer. Okay, Ben Bramer was a 4-star pickup. He's one of the top portal tight ends. Ben Bramer's like 6'7". I forget his weight, if it's like 240, 250. But he's a one of the top portal tight ends. To me, he is like a poor man's Mike Gesicki. The reason I say that, tall, big, go up and get the ball, great red zone threat. I'm sure he's not as fast as Gesicki. I think Gesicki ran a 4.5 actually. But he's not a good blocker. Bramer's not a good blocker. And Gesicki couldn't block to save his life. Gesicki was like a big receiver, great as a receiving tight end, you know, not a good inline blocking tight end in general. That's what Ben Bramer is. Great. I don't think great. Not Gesicki quite low, but very, very good receiving tight end. But he needs a lot of help with blocking. And any Penn State fans that are watching this, I would say go check out Landon Tangwell's videos. He does a great job of breaking down different players. I do it myself as much as I can when I have time. And he highlights Ben Bramer's poor blocking as well. But then they got Iowa State's they actually got 2 other tight ends. They got Gabe Burkle. Gabe Burkle is the opposite of Bramer, where he's more of a physical blocker. He's more of an inline tight end. Not as good as, you know, obviously he could go out and catch the ball and do some things in the receiving game, but he's not as big of a receiving threat or as a red zone threat as Bramer. So that's the reason I gave it the position a B+, because it's, you know, you get a little of both. And 2 very good tight ends, Bramer being the best. Now, I give that position group overall an A or an A-. Andrew Rapulé, he's a stud. He's good. You know, people, you know, it's kind of funny because when Rapulé came in as a true freshman, people were calling him Baby Gronk and stuff. And then he got hurt. He got hurt really early on. The first, I don't know what game, it was the first few games. He got hurt early on, missed the rest of the season. Okay. Then Luke Reynolds came in, this true freshman. You heard so much about Luke Reynolds. He stole all the hype at the tight end room. Andrew Rapulé, without a doubt, was better than what Luke Reynolds was last year. Luke Reynolds, a lot of people had high hopes for him. He had a down year. Wasn't a good blocker. He had some drops, and he just was not as complete of a tight end as Rapulé. I still think there's a lot of upside to Luke Reynolds. I'm sure Virginia Tech will have a very good career, but we got the better of the two in Rapulé. So you go with Rapulé, and we have another tight end, Ben Kordovich, that was part of, I think he was part of the 26 class, 25 or the 26 class. I think 20, I forget. I think it was a 25 or 26 class. He's another 4-star tight end out of Indiana. We also retained him, high upside guy. So our tight end room is really good. It's really an A minus. Like, we got all the pieces. They're going to be there for a few years, like Rapulé should, Burkle should, Kordovich should. So looking really good at tight end. Anything you want to add before I go on?
No, I think just good formation of the room from everything it sounds like you're saying. Got your blocking guys, got your receiving guys, and kind of going from there. It's a modern way to build the room, and I think Matt Campbell's doing it the right way.
Yeah, he did a great job. So on the offensive line, I gave the portal pickups a B. We got the two main guys, and I'm sure there's going to be some guys I'm forgetting. I'm only focusing on the top guys that are going to be, making the most impact the next year or so. We got Brock Riker and Trevor Burr. Brock Riker was an All-American. He was a freshman All-American. He made second team All-Freshman All-American at Texas State, whatever conference they're in. Very good, sound football player. He has to get stronger, but he's just a very good run blocker, very disciplined. He's quick for an O-lineman, agile. He could get to his blocks. He's just a sound, good football player. You get him in the weight room to add some muscle, add some strength, and he'll be even better. I would expect, he's a center, I would expect Brock Riker, if I were to guess, to likely be the starter next year. So it's going to be probably between him and Dom Ruley. Dom Ruley was a walk-on at Penn State who earned a scholarship, started at center in the bowl game. He's a pretty good player. Like, he's a solid player. But I think this Brock Riker, has more upside. The other tight end or offensive lineman they got, Trevor Burr. Trevor Burr was a starting guard in Iowa State last year. Again, solid player, good sound football player. Nothing over the top that is going to wow you, like not some big NFL future draft pick, like high draft pick, but a good, solid, more of a veteran type player, knows the system, knows Clanton, solid pickup. I think Rikers has the more upside of the two. They're both going to be interior linemen. Riker is a center. Does that mean he has to be a center? No, they could use him at guard. So with those two, like I said, I would give that a B. The room overall, I'm going to give a B+. And that might be being a little, giving them a little bump without really knowing much. But, I didn't, coming into this year, our offensive line was supposed to be the shit. They're supposed to be great. They weren't horrible, but they were nowhere near as good as what they were supposed to be. So, I mean, they're slight, they played better as the year went on, especially once Terry took over and football became fun again. But I do like some of the pieces they have at Penn State. Owen Allison, Garrett Sexton, I think will battle for the one tackle position. Owen Allison, high upside guy. I mean, very athletic for a tackle. He's one of your taller type, 6'7", might even be like 6'8", type of tackle. Had to put on weight, did. So Garrett Sexton was a very highly ranked recruit, similar to Sexton, but even more athletic. This Garrett Sexton was like 6'6", and he came to Penn. He was actually a quarterback in high school in Wisconsin, and then he just started to grow more and more. And he came to Penn State, and he might have been 260, 270, and he had to put on weight. And the one thing Franklin had was so good was the strength and conditioning program. I mean, that was top notch. Like these guys put on muscle mass so quick, it was incredible. And this guy they got him bulked up too fast to where, from what I heard, that he actually got injured, like just gaining weight too fast. I don't know how true that is, just kind of like what I heard. Anyways, I do like the receiver or the offensive line room overall. Cooper Cousins is a former 5-star interior lineman. He played sparingly last year. I look for him to absolutely be one of the starting start somewhere on the interior, probably at guard. He's a very good player. Donka, we got Anthony Donka is probably going to be our right tackle. Donka had a lot of upside as a tackle. He's not an old Fasciano, but he's a very, very high upside guy. I keep saying upside, but it's just how I feel. So against Ole Miss 2 years ago in the bowl game, it was like first time I believe he started at tackle, and he played really well. Last year at Penn State, because they had Rusi and Shelton at tackle, they moved him inside Donka, but I think he did play tackle the bowl game. I'm not entirely sure. But again, he's another veteran player, just very solid. And I just think being coached well, and I'm a big believer in the offensive line, especially in the run game. It's not just about physicality, it's executing your blocks, getting a hat on a hat. You know how many times you'd see two offensive linemen doubling a defensive lineman in a run play, and then they don't get to the second level and get to the linebacker in time, and the linebacker comes in free and just, for a short gain, tackles your running back. Execution is everything in football. It's what made Indiana so good. Executing your blocks at a high level. Hopefully this squad could do this with the new coaches, and I do think the talent is there for them to be not a great offensive line, but a solid offensive line. That is the offense. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah, Donka played right tackle in the bowl game there against Clemson. Did well at right tackle. It was a Boyer, I think it was, that played left tackle, and I don't think he had a great day if my memory serves well. Which Clemson typically has some really good defensive linemen. I think they had some guys out for stuff in that one, so it is what it is. But yeah, I think bringing back a guy like that, move him in there at tackle. We'll see how it goes next season. I'm with you. So much of offensive line is projection because it's just about execution, chemistry. How do you work together? Biggest thing is, do you have guys that are athletic enough to be able to move and have good size? And to me, from what I look on the outside looking in with this Penn State offensive line, looks like they have the guys with the size. We'll see if the athleticism's there when the season starts. But I'm with you. Nothing that I'm super excited about, but I'm also not looking at this offensive line like it's a big concern.
Yeah, and a guy I forgot to mention, Malachi Goodman. Malachi Goodman was a high 4. I think he might have been a 5-star on one site.
I think he was for a little bit. I think he lost it, though. Go ahead, though.
Yeah. I don't think he's I think he's a hell of a player. I wouldn't say he's a 5-star, but I do think he could be at least a mid 4-star. He's interesting watching his film. The guy came in with great size. He already came in well over 300 pounds. I haven't heard anything good, bad, or indifferent his first year. He's only a true freshman, but he's a higher level. He's a higher recruit. A lot of promise. A lot of people excited about him. I think he would make a better interior player than he would a tackle. That's just me. Not that he can't play tackle. Like he's got, he's athletic enough to be a tackle. His feet are quick enough to be a tackle. And I think he might be a good tackle. I just think there's more upside to him on the inside. Kind of like Mekhi Becton, if you remember Mekhi Becton from Louisville, I think it was. And now in the NFL, he started off as tackle. And he was a good tackle in the NFL, but he knocked, like with the Eagles. I don't know what he did this past year with the Chargers, but he was great with the Eagles as an interior player. But that's what I got for the O-line. So we'll go to defense now. We'll start with defensive tackle. I gave this group a B+. This is another group of kind of let's wait and see. This was our biggest need in the portal. We lost everybody. We basically played 3. We basically kind of had like 3 starters last year: Xavier Gilliam, Zane Durant, Alonzo Ford. I mean, Gilliam was only in his second year. He had some upside, didn't do anything special. He's gone. They're all gone. So we absolutely had to bring in a bunch of D tackles. The number one guy we got is Kano Williams. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. And here's the thing about D tackle is the defensive line coach that we got from UCLA was there. I think it was from UCLA. Was there when Danton Lynn coached at UCLA. And those guys worked really well together. Your defense coordinator, defensive line coach, they understood, the system they wanted to play. And they absolutely are clearly going for bigger body D tackles. Franklin would rather turn a big defensive end into a defensive tackle. Like, the biggest difference between Franklin and Matt Campbell so far is they're not just chasing stars, Campbell, they're chasing football players. Franklin was obsessed with the stopwatch, with testing numbers, with athleticism, as you should be. But Campbell, he would rather a 290-pound or 280-pound D tackle that's quick and could move over a 320-pound run stuffer. Not that they never tried to recruit big tackles under D tackles or Franklin, like PJ Mustipher was an example. But it just seemed like they were and it's defensive tackle is the hardest position to recruit because there's just not a lot of 300-pound guys that have the movement skills and athleticism to play D tackle. And you could absolutely see under Campbell, they're going for bigger D tackles. Kano Williams, 320 pounds from UCLA. In 2024, he had a season-ending knee injury. So he came back. He only played a few games in 24. Came back, and in 2025, he is looked at probably as your number one big one-tech run stuffer. I think he had some like 39 tackles or something like that, which ain't bad for a defensive tackle. Now, is he going to be fully healthy? Hopefully, maybe last year he wasn't quite as fully recovered from his knee injury. Maybe this year he'll be, but that's one of the main guys that are looking to be that big run stuffer, not get pushed around. We got some other big boys. Then they got Dallas. I don't know how to say this name, Vigalti or something like that. He's from Utah. He's another 305-pound defensive tackle. He didn't really put up big numbers. He only had 11 tackles in 2025. I don't even think he started for Utah. I watched his film, and again, it's just, these big defensive tackles, it's not a lot of defensive tackles, especially one-tech guys, they're not going to fill up the stat sheet. What they're supposed to do is be able to take on the double teams at the point of attack, not get pushed back, be strong at the point of attack, just eat up the offensive linemen, whether they're getting double or single, to free up the linebackers. I'm sure he's good enough to do that. The guy, he's a big boy. I don't know how good these guys are going to be overall, though. Are they going to be just big bodies that occupy the offensive linemen, or are they going to be able to make plays as well? That remains to be seen. Another defensive tackle we got, Sayal Tupaki. Again, I'm probably not saying that name right. He's a guy I think he's about 85 years old. He looked like he enrolled when he was like 2019 or something, man. Holy cow. No, seriously, he's going into like his 6th year. So he had an injury where he's out for a whole year to 1 year. Then you had the COVID year of 2020 that didn't count. So this is literally like his 6th year. So he's a grown-ass man. He's 325 pounds. Last year, again, only 15 tackles. I don't remember if he started last year. He might not have started. But he only had 15 tackles. Just like Dallas, the last guy, big body, big, strong guy. Is he going to be just occupying offensive linemen, or is he going to be actually making plays? And then the last guy we got, this guy I really, really like, and I think this is a very under-the-radar guy. Armstrong Nodim. Again, I don't. His last name is spelled Nndioim or something like that. He's 290 pounds, came from Oklahoma State. I forgot to write down the stats on him. This guy's a powerhouse, and he's explosive. Like, this guy could move. He's explosive. He can move. He's going to be more of your 3-tech type defensive tackle. But, I mean, he's built like a big bouncer at a club. I mean, just very thick build, explosive. He's not as big as the other D tackles, but just a big, very, very strong, powerful man that really has some nice explosion, some good movement skills. So I'm excited for the D tackles. So it's kind of a wait and see thing, but if I was going to give a grade overall, I would give it a B+. I mean, they absolutely address their needs at defensive tackle. They went out and signed 4 guys. So I'm going to give them a B+. Anything you want to add till I go to the end?
I like that strategy better. I think that a lot of guys try to do the thing that Franklin was doing with like pushing guys inside, but a lot of guys they don't go inside because they don't want to go inside. And so a lot of times you're pushing guys in there that aren't good enough to start, number 1, or number 2, you're pushing them in there and they're going to say, well, screw you. I don't want to play inside. I'm going to go play edge over at, South Carolina State or something like that, because I'd rather do that than go play inside. at Penn State or whatever. And I just think it's a better thing to go out and actually get the dude. It can be more difficult, but I like Matt Campbell's strategy.
Oh, everybody does. Believe me. There's not one Penn State fan I met that doesn't. But, here's what's interesting based on what you're saying. Like, some people don't want to go inside. They want to stay on the edge. So, excuse me. Xavier Gilliam, I believe, was a defensive end in high school. And he was like 260-pound range in high school. Now he's up to 300. He transferred to Tennessee. But I remember him and T. Frank, who's on the Penn State message board, talked about a lot. T. Frank's great dude, does good film breakdowns. He kept talking about how Xavier Gilliam would stress how much different it is inside. When you're on the edge, you could use your speed. Is there physicality? Sure. But it's not just immediate. It's just not always an immediate battle of just strength on strength. You could use your speed. You have room to run around the edge. You have more room to operate. And I remember this Xavier Gilliam stressing how much different it is as a D tackle. Like, it's just immediate physicality, which obviously you're on the inside. But I think it was a little overwhelming to him at first because he had a lot of pop. Like, this kid was for a D tackle or a big edge. Like, he could really move for a big guy. He had that quick burst for a big guy. It was very good. Burst off the ball. He had pretty good hands and just good overall movement skills. And I think he was so used to winning like that it was a little bit of an adjustment going inside where, yeah, you still got to have good movement skills, but it's pure power. Another guy I want to mention that's like that I love this guy's film coming out of high school. Liam Andrews. Liam Andrews is another defensive tackle, not transfer recruit. And I'll just touch on him real quick. He had such huge upside, but he was a defensive end in high school. Again, he was physical, but he was so technically sound with his hands and so quick and explosive for a big guy with a burst that I think when he went on the inside, it was such a big adjustment because he's kind of like, he's still got a ways to go. And I believe he's hurt a little bit, but I think it was, people were kind of expecting him to be a little further along than what he is. But again, he's young. So I'll just want to just point that out. Defensive end. So I gave this group at defensive end, the pickup, I gave a B+. We only got one. Again, I'm only talking about the big name guys. There might be some low level. I think there's a low level defensive end we got, like Elijah Carey or something like that from Iowa State. But the guy I like is Alex McPherson. I think it's Alexander McPherson. Came from Colorado. 6'6", 240, 250 range. Just really explosive for his size. Not really, but explosive for his size. Very good hand usage. You can tell he's knowledgeable of the game, the way he plays, the way he anticipates things, some of the moves he does. This guy is good. He's not like, and he played at IMG, which is kind of saying something. They usually only take some of the best guys in high school. And he didn't put up huge numbers, but the number one thing you can't teach on the edge, you either have it or you don't, and I think it's so important, is just having that quick, explosive burst off the ball. Alvin Carter had it. Chop had it at extremely high level. Chop Robinson. This guy doesn't have it quite at that level. He's also a lot bigger of a guy. But if you guys watch Ivan Camacho from last year, who was a true freshman, he was another guy that Franklin was going to move inside, but he was agile and quick enough to play the edge. They kept him there. He's 6'3", 240. He's not as tall as McPherson, but he has a good. It's not an elite quick burst off the edge, but it's a good burst, and that's what this McPherson reminds me of. He has a good burst off the edge. He's physical. He's longer. He's taller, and he's very good with his hands. It's so many defensive ends that come out of high school. You'll notice you watch their film. They're such better athletes. They're these big time Division I future players that when they're going against high school tackles, they don't have to rely on so many rips, chops, swipes. They could just win with pure athleticism. Like Chaz Coleman, I think when he played in high school his senior year, it might have been the first year he ever played defense. or it might have been his junior year. Like his high school film, he was out there using basketball moves to beat the tackle. He didn't know what he was doing with his hands, but he came a lot. He got coached up pretty damn quick, I'll tell you that. But my point is, hand usage is so important for edge rushers and D tackles, but really edge rushers. And this McPherson has good hands, and he learned, and that's for a young defensive end. That's saying something, because sometimes that takes a little bit to develop. So I gave him a B+. It's only one guy, but I love his upside so much. I gave the overall room a B+. So I mentioned McPherson, the three main defensive ends I think you're going to see most of. Alex McPherson, Yvonne Camacho, and Max Granville. For the people, now obviously Penn State fans know who Max Granville is. If you put on Max Granville's film, your eyes will pop. He just pops immediately. He's only like 6'2.5", 6'3", but he's built like a brick shit house. He missed last year. He was going to play a lot this year. He missed last season. He tore his knee up in the preseason. It was a season-ending injury. This guy's high school film, it pops immediately. When I talk about this quick burst and explosion off the ball, he has it at an elite level, and he has good hands. He's pretty good hands. He could always get better. Not the biggest guy, but he's built really physical. And I don't know what he's up to now. He's got to be at least 240 at Penn State. But he is so quick and explosive off the ball. He just shocks the offensive tackle. He's either running around him before he's even out of his stance, or the offensive tackle is just, he can't even get his hands on him. This guy's so explosive, so physical. So really excited to see him come back. Yvonne Camacho, Alex McPherson, Max Granville is going to be our DNs. I gave that group a B+. Want me to keep going? I don't know what position you sometimes you want to add stuff or.
Yeah, I don't have any thoughts on the defensive end. So yeah, go ahead and go on to linebackers.
All right. Linebackers. So we got, I gave this group a B. Basically what they did is they went out and got the 3 starting linebackers from Iowa State. None of them are great. They all look like good, sound, solid football players. None of them are great. Okay. I'm not saying they're bad. They're not bad. None of them are going to like really pop out like, wow, these guys are absolute studs. But you know what? If we're going to run a 4-2 or I assume we'll probably be running, I'm not sure what Dan Tomlin's going to do because he adjusts his defense to his personnel. So I don't know if he's going to be a 4-2 guy or more of a 4-3 with 3 actual linebackers. But, with Tony Rojas there, you're going to have, he's your athletic speedster. Hopefully he'll come back. He could run sideline to sideline. The 3 linebackers they got from Iowa State, Caleb Bacon, Cooper Ebel, Cale Brazina. Ebel led them in tackle, amongst the linebackers, led them in tackles. Caleb Bacon wasn't far behind. Ebel and Bacon, they're the 2 top guys that I would watch out for. Just good, sound football players. Bacon is very good at rushing the passer, getting in the backfield. He's just, a headsy player. They could always do a little better with their tackling. So, you don't always have to have absolute speedsters and these freak athletic linebackers all the time. Good example of this is Kobe King. Kobe King wasn't some freak athlete, but he was just a very good, solid middle linebacker. Give me a solid middle linebacker that could read and react, because the linebacker's all instincts. The linebacker is so instinctual. You have to quickly read and react to play, and then you have to shoot the right gap. You don't know if a running back can bounce it. So it's very instinctual. Give me a smart linebacker that could read and react correctly and shoot the right gap and be in the right position. Even if he's not the most athletic guy, between Bacon, Ebel, hopefully one of them will be that guy. And then you have your little speed athletic linebacker that could run sideline to sideline in Tony Rojas. So I gave that portal group a B, and I'm going to go B overall. Penn State, besides Rojas and the portal linebackers, they do have some young guys. Alex Tash was a true freshman last year, and he started to come on. He didn't do anything great. He's only a true freshman, but he got more playing time at the end a little bit sporadically. But I think he may have gotten re-injured again. I know he came in with an injury in high school, I'm not sure if he got re-injured again. I think it's Tash. But he's another typical old school paternal-like linebacker, but he's athletic. He's not as athletic as Rojas, but he could move. He's physical, big kid, just, smart, instinctual player. Hopefully he's back to start the season. And then there's another linebacker, Cam Smith, he's supposed to play more. He was supposed to be coming on. Didn't play as much as I thought last year. Was only a true freshman. He's more of an athletic, speedy linebacker. Again, not quite Rojas. Rojas is a 4-5 guy. But Cam Smith went to St. Joe's Prep in Philly. It was one of the top schools in the country for football. And just a good, speedy linebacker. So there's athleticism there. There's veteran leadership in the Iowa State guys. And then you got your athletic guy in Tony Rojas. And let me tell you this, Tony Rojas was playing really well last year up until he got injured. So hopefully he comes back healthy. I'll move on to see. For corners, they didn't really do much at corner because we retained most of our top corner. Well, we lost A.J. Harris. A.J. Harris had a down year. I don't consider him a big loss. Elliott Washington, I still think Elliott Washington could be a solid player. He's a 4-3 guy. He's physical, but he transferred out. But our top corners, we got Jameer Joseph, Darius Dixon, Zion Tracy. I think we picked up a corner from Syracuse. I forget the guy's name. I don't even know how to say it. But it's like IBN something. I don't. But he wasn't even a starter at Syracuse. I don't expect this guy to do much. It's probably just going to be a depth piece. So they didn't really go out big time and address the corner. So, I mean, if I was to give it a grade, it'd probably be like a D, to be honest with you. But there wasn't as much of a need at corner. The group as a whole overall, I'm going to give a B+. I am very high on Darius Dixon and Jameer Joseph. Zion Tracy, I'm iffy about. I've always been. I've seen him get beat too much. He's not horrible. He just gets beat a little too much for my liking. Darius Dixon, everybody knows, is a Penn State fan. He was one of the more important guys to get back. He was actually from Mater Dei out in California. I always confuse Mater Dei with St. John Bosco or Don Bosco, whatever one it is. Yeah. So he went to Mater Dei, which is very rare for a kid like that from California to come all the way over to, on the East Coast, especially to Penn State. But he came up, loved his visit. I mean, loved Terry, and he's high upside guy. He doesn't have great long speed, but he's a very physical corner, very sound technique, great in zones. He's great at closing in on his own. Jameer Joseph is a 4-star guy from Jersey. He played a lot last year, not last year. He came on last year. He actually had an interception one game. Good size, got to be like about 6 foot, probably around 190. Just a good all-around corner. And I'm pretty high on those guys. So I'm going to go B+. It's still have to wait and see. It's a little bit of a small sample size. Going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say a B+. So we'll go on to safeties. I gave the safety room an A. This is an A or an A-. Probably the best room they did outside of quarterback. So at safety, they got all 3 Iowa State safeties. They got Marcus Neal, Jeremiah Cooper, and they got Jamison Patton. Marcus Neal was a 4-star safety. He's one of the top safeties that came out in the portal. He is your ultimate box safety. Not a Caleb Downs, but Caleb Downs type of play style. He's super aggressive. He triggers. He gets downhill. He's great at coming up in the box. He's great very good in run support. Very high-level player. I've even seen early, I mean, it's worth nothing, but some guy on ESPN put out like the top 3 position groups, like under the radar guys or just guys to watch out for in the NFL draft. And 3 guys at each position. And Marcus Neal was one of the top 3 guys at safety. Physical guy, just very good in run support. Kind of reminds me of when Marcus Allen was at Penn State as a safety. Wasn't great in coverage, but just kind of like an extra linebacker as a safety. So then went out and got Jeremiah Cooper. We just got him not long ago. He held out. I think he had an agent, was testing the waters a little bit. Jeremiah Cooper is a swing guy. He played safety, he played corner. Jeremiah Cooper, to me, is the opposite of Neal, kind of like Bramer and Burkle at tight end. He is great in coverage. He plays physical, but he's not a great tackler. He's not a great tackler. He's always looking to throw a shoulder and not always wrap up, but he does play physical, and he's really good in coverage. He's being a former corner. I'm pretty sure he's going to be a safety at Penn State. He was actually a 94 4-star. He's probably one of the top portal guys, if not the top that we got, according to the rankings for whatever they're worth. But he's great in coverage. So we got one guy super aggressive, maybe not great in coverage, in Neal, but just very good in run support. And then we got a very good coverage safety in Jeremiah Cooper. And Jameis Patton, I haven't watched a ton on him, but Jameis Patton was amongst the team leaders in tackles. Marcus Neal was actually their tackling leader last year. Jameis Patton was up there. And so I gave the group an A-. The other guy I would like to mention, not a portal guy, has been on Penn State, is Vabu Toure. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but Vabu Toure. His brother was, I think, Muhammad Toure, went to Miami, played linebacker at Miami in this past year. Toure, people are kind of sleeping on because we lost. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. I forget the guy's name. He's number 10, I believe, for Penn State. He was a younger safety. I think he was in his second year. I can't believe I can't.
Is it King Mack?
No, not King Mack. This guy was a bigger guy. He was like 6 foot, but oh man, who the heck was it? Anyways, let me look it up. This is driving me crazy. I'll find it in a second. Driving me nuts. Probably not ideal.
I remember
Dejon Lane. His name's Dejon Lane. That's who it was. I just got it. Dejon Lane. So we lost him, but a lot of with the younger safeties, a lot of the hype was around, King Mack, if you consider young, but you heard a lot about Dejon Lane because Dejon Lane's very, very athletic. He transferred out, went to Tennessee, but this Vabu Toure is a good football player. He played in the bowl game. He came on at the end of the year a little bit. And so I think people are sleeping on Vabu Toure a little bit, or Toure, if you say it that way. So that's pretty much my summation. If I were to give the portal pickups an overall grade, it'd probably be B+ or a B. It's hard to go either or, but probably, for argument's sake, I'll go B+. That's what I'll say. Still wish they would have made a little bit of splashes and got a few bigger name guys, but I don't like, you say that and all the Penn State Sunshine Pumpers have a conniption fit, so whatever. But that's what I would go with, probably B+. They certainly address their needs, and should be a good year next year.
All right, there you go. All of the positions for Penn State graded coming out of the transfer portal. This is probably our longest transfer portal recap, but I was really glad to have you come on and do that, Chris, because I think it's very insightful and I learned a lot. So what are your thoughts on Penn State next season? Just real quick. I mean, right now they're tied for 18th in national championship odds. That obviously, doesn't mean a whole lot, but that's kind of, a good gauge of where things are. They're right behind Michigan in the odds. I think they're probably about 5th on FanDuel in terms of Big Ten. Few thousand ahead of Iowa, about 1,000 behind Michigan and USC there. Is that kind of where you're estimating Penn State might be next year, or higher, lower? What do you think?
I mean, I don't look at the odds. It's a lot like that. But, if I were to guess, I would say finish the regular season, maybe 3 losses. I could very easily see them finishing with 2 losses and backdooring their way into the playoffs. And only because the schedule is so easy. I mean, they don't have Iowa, they don't play Indiana, they don't play Ohio State. I mean, their toughest games are they're on the road at Michigan, on the road at Washington, and they have USC. That will probably be the whiteout game at home. That's it. They have some other, Minnesota is always a solid team to give them an issue. Maryland maybe with, Malik Washington's a pretty good quarterback, though Penn State usually handles Maryland. So I just, just because the schedule's so easy and they're bringing back a veteran quarterback that's going to have a Penn State offensive line to play behind. And if these, like I said, if these receivers are up to snuff, I mean, if you just go from a strictly talent standpoint against all the teams all their opponents this next year, the only teams that arguably have more talent is Michigan, maybe USC. USC had a great recruiting class, but they're only going to be freshmen. But I mean, Michigan and USC are the only two teams from a talent standpoint that is on the level or better than the talent Penn State's bringing in. And Michigan's went through a coaching change. So it's going to be a fun year. I know everybody's excited. I know we're going to have a downfield vertical passing game for once, and it should be a consistent passing game, which will be nice. Rocco Becht works on his accuracy, protects the ball a little better, doesn't throw. Like they had BYU beat Iowa State, and Becht threw some costly interceptions in the middle of the year. They started off on fire. And so I on the safe side, I'm saying 3 losses. The optimism side, if everything clicks with this defense, I have no idea. There's less answers on defense. No idea how this defense is going to gel, what Dan Tomlin's going to do his first year. But if this defense is respectable, maybe giving up 15 to 17 points a game max, I could see this offense, with the running game, and I could see 2 losses. That's not unrealistic. I'm going with 3, but I can see 2.
I'm not going to pick Penn State to go to the playoffs or anything like that, but when we do our Big Ten, schedule preview and stuff like that, which we're going to do that on Tuesday night with me and Zach, I can definitely see us coming away from this and looking at that and saying Penn State might have a chance to make the playoffs next year. I'm not going to pick it to happen, but it could happen.
Yeah. I guess I saw a thing today. I was watching something on with Cam Newton and Stephen A. Smith where they're not going to go to a 16 or 24 game playoff this year. Then I saw something like that where if they do, it's not going to happen this year. I thought it might happen this year, but
Friday was the final day for that, and they can't get together. The Big Ten wants 24 teams, and the SEC
that's ridiculous.
16.
Yeah, it's 24 is too much. The one thing I'll tell you this: when I went to these NIL events, Franklin would always speak, and the one thing he said, and I'm actually agreeing with him on this, is they were complaining about the Big Ten having 9 conference games back then. I guess I don't know if they still do, where the SEC only has 8. And they took a vote, I guess, with the Big Ten commissioner and all the Big Ten teams I don't know if it gives the athletic directors, or they all took a vote, and overwhelmingly, if they want to stay at 9 or go to 8. And overwhelmingly, Franklin said at this NIL event, every coach voted to go to 8 conference games, which is because that's what the SEC has. And even though it was a majority vote, where I don't think none of them voted to stay at 9, the Big Ten commissioner still kept it at 9. Because, and what he basically said is the SEC just cares more about doing what's best for, what's right and what's best for football, where the Big Ten just cares more about the money. That's what
Yeah.
So,
well, the good news is that the SEC did move to 9 conference games and 1 required Power 4 opponent this offseason. So
that's cool.
It was last offseason. It's going to go into effect this season. So and I think there was a lot of people in the Big Ten that felt like that was going to happen eventually. Now they thought they were doing it and it was going to go to 16 teams in the playoffs. And from what I was told, Tony Petitti was banking on the SEC essentially caving to go to 24 teams because they would be worried with 9 conference games and a required Power 4 out of conference opponent that they wouldn't get as many teams in. But Greg Sankey didn't cave, so didn't work out for the Big Ten. But I'm sure it'll change. They'll add more teams at some point.
I just think 24 is too much. I think 16 is the perfect number. You don't have any buys that way. It's just boom, 16 teams. That's enough teams to give everybody a shot. It's not going to be overly watered down if you have 16. No buys, 16, 8, 4, 2, champ. Boom. That's but whatever, It is what it is.
All right. So, anything else, Chris?
No, that's all I got, man. Glad to come on and chop it up with you, and hope everything's well with you, the listeners, all the Penn State fans out there.
Yeah, for sure. Let us know in the comments how you're doing and everything like that. As if you've been listening to other shows, you know that we're doing a giveaway right now. So if you like, comment, and subscribe here at the end of January, I'm going to do a random pick of all the people who commented and everything. And if you get picked, I will respond to your comment, let you know, and I'll let you pick one thing off of Home Field, anything $100 or less off of there. I'll buy it for you. I'll send it to you completely free. All to you. You don't have to pay for shipping. You don't have to pay for anything like that. I'll buy it for you, ship it straight to you, and use our affiliate link down in the description for Home Field as well. Definitely helps us out, and we appreciate you doing that. So, all right, everybody, we'll bring Chris back again. I'm sure here soon. We get Chris on here all the time. He always does a great job, and we'll keep talking Penn State and everything else. So, have a good one, everybody. See you next time.
See you later.